HFY and invasion. They came on a Tuesday. The crack ships appeared without warning. 7 massive vessels hanging in the sky like obsidian daggers, their surfaces absorbing rather than reflecting sunlight. For 6 hours, they simply waited, positioned over major population centers: Beijing, New York, London, Moscow, New Delhi, Sao Paulo, and Cairo. For 6 hours, humanity held its collective breath. Television broadcasts interrupted, phones stopped working, and the internet went dark except for one signal, a countdown clock, appearing on every screen across the planet. When it reached 0, the message came. People of Earth, the transmission began. The alien's voice translated into perfect, accentless English. I am Supreme Commander Vorax of the Krax Empire. Your planet is now under our protection and control. Your primitive species has been observed for decades, and we have determined you require guidance to achieve your potential. Resistance is unnecessary and wasteful. Submission is the logical choice. The aliens, bipedal but with 4 arms, scales like polished hematite, and eyes that glowed amber, showed footage of other worlds they had saved, planets where species now lived under Krax rule, working in vast mining operations and factories, their cultures homogenized, their independence gone. Your world leaders have 24 hours to formally surrender, Vorax continued. After which, we will begin the benevolent correction process. This is mercy. This is inevitability. In the Pentagon's crisis room, General Maya Santos slammed her fist on the table. They expect us to just roll over. No way in hell. Their tech is centuries beyond ours. Defense Secretary Williams replied, his face ashen. The president wants to attempt diplomatic channels first. Did you see those weapon systems? Santos pointed to the analysis streaming in from what few satellites remained operational. Those aren't peacekeepers. Those are planet killers. Across the world, similar conversations played out in government bunkers and military installations. Emergency sessions of the UN Security Council convened. Religious leaders called for calm. Civilians either fled cities or flocked to them, seeking answers no one had. The 24-hour deadline approached. In his Tokyo apartment, Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, an astrophysicist who'd spent his career searching for extraterrestrial life, watched the clock tick down with bitter irony. Finally found them, he muttered, downloading everything he could from his university servers. Something about the Krax transmission bothered him. Their technology was advanced, yes, but their psychology seemed oddly translatable, almost too human in its arrogance. When the deadline expired, Earth's united response was transmitted, a request for dialogue, for cultural exchange before any formal agreements. It was the best the fractured governments of humanity could agree on, a stalling tactic cloaked in diplomacy. The Krax answer came swiftly. The ship over Cairo fired first, a beam of concentrated energy that carved a molten trench 20 kilometers long through the desert outside the city. A warning shot, but one that killed thousands in outlying settlements. Your species misunderstands. Vorax's voice returned to all functioning screens. This is not a negotiation. You have rejected our mercy. Now witness our power. The next strikes targeted military installations, air bases, naval ports, missile silos, precision attacks that eliminated defensive capabilities while leaving civilian infrastructure largely intact. The Krax wanted Earth's resources, including its population. Dead humans served no purpose in their empire, but they had miscalculated one critical factor: humanity's stubborn refusal to accept defeat. When the ground invasion began, with sleek shuttles deploying troops outside major cities, the Krax expected minimal resistance. Their intelligence suggested Earth's militaries would be paralyzed after the initial strikes, that civilians would hide in fear. Instead, they found hell waiting for them. In the ruins of a Seoul military base, Captain Ja-Yum Kim led a counterattack with the surviving members of her unit. They had lost their heavy weaponry in the orbital strike, but improvised with what remained: The Crack's combat armor proved vulnerable to concentrated small arms fire at the joints, a weakness discovered when a frightened private emptied his entire magazine in panic, accidentally hitting the same spot repeatedly. "Aim for the neck seams," Kim shouted, as her soldiers adjusted their tactics on the fly. They downed 3 alien squads before being forced to retreat, taking captured Crack's weapons with them. Similar scenes played out globally. Humanity didn't fight like any species the Cracks had encountered before. Where others followed predictable military doctrines, humans were chaos incarnate. Formal military units fought alongside civilian militias. Tactics ranged from sophisticated ambushes to crude but effective traps. In London, retired Royal Engineer Colonel Alistair Blackwood coordinated with city transit workers to flood tunnels when Crack's forces moved through them. In Rio de Janeiro, street gangs put aside rivalries to launch hit-and-run attacks on alien patrols, disappearing into faveless the Cracks couldn't navigate. 6 days into the invasion, Dr. Nakamura made a breakthrough while analyzing captured Cracks technology in a makeshift lab in Osaka. Their neural interfaces, the systems controlling their advanced weaponry, operated on frequencies that caused them discomfort at certain modulations. "It's like a dog whistle," he explained via a cobbled-together secure channel to resistance cells worldwide. "Their nervous systems evolved differently. We can't defeat their technology, but we might be able to defeat their biology." General Santos, now operating from a mobile command center in the Appalachian Mountains, received Nakamura's data. "We need to get this to everyone," she said, "and we need to test it. Fast." The first test came in Chicago, where Crack's forces had established a processing center in Grant Park. Engineers rigged city emergency broadcast systems to emit the frequencies Nakamura had identified. When activated, the effect was immediate. Crack's soldiers clutched their heads, their movements becoming erratic. Some collapsed entirely. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a weapon. Supreme Commander Vorax, observing from the flagship over New York, was stunned by the reports coming in. The human resistance wasn't just stronger than anticipated. It was adaptable in ways that defied Crack's strategic models. "These creatures are irrational," his second-in-command Drex observed. "They continue fighting when all logic indicates surrender would minimize their losses." "No," Vorax replied, watching footage of humans using Crack's weapons against their former owners. "They are not irrational. They are unpredictable. There is a difference, and it makes them dangerous." He ordered reinforcements from the nearest Crack's outpost, 4 light-years away. It would take their ships 13 days to arrive. 13 days during which these unpredictable humans would continue to learn, to adapt. For the first time in his 3-century military career, Supreme Commander Vorax felt something unfamiliar: doubt. Meanwhile, beneath the ruins of Geneva, representatives from surviving governments and military forces gathered in a repurposed CERN facility. General Santos addressed the assembly via secure link. "We've been fighting in isolation, but now we have communication, and we have a weakness to exploit," she said. "We need to coordinate globally. The Cracks expected us to be easy prey. Let's show them just how wrong they were." Dr. Nakamura, brought to the meeting virtually from his lab, explained his latest findings. "The frequency disruption is just the beginning. Their neural tech interfaces directly with their biology. If we can broadcast the right signal pattern, we might be able to temporarily disable their entire command structure." "How temporary?" asked Colonel Kim, now representing what remained of South Korea's military leadership. "Long enough," Nakamura replied. "Long enough for what we're planning." As plans were made in Geneva, ordinary people continued the fight. In Madagascar, fishermen used their knowledge of local waters to sink Crack's landing craft. In the American Southwest, indigenous guides led resistance fighters through desert passages the aliens couldn't track. In Ukraine, farmers modified agricultural equipment to serve as mobile artillery platforms. The Cracks had studied human military doctrine, but failed to understand human nature. the stubborn, relentless drive to survive, to protect one's home, to improvise when facing impossible odds. 14 days after the invasion began, humanity launched its first coordinated counterattack. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and exactly the kind of chaotic strategy the cracks couldn't predict. It was time to take back Earth. The Resistance called it Operation Thundercloud. Its core was beautifully simple. Use Dr. Nakamura's frequency disruptors to create a rolling wave of cracks neural disruption, moving from east to west across time zones. As each region activated the signal, resistance forces would strike simultaneously at cracks installations, using captured alien weapons supplemented by whatever conventional arms remained. It's not about winning every battle, General Santos explained during the final briefing. It's about creating maximum chaos in their command structure. The cracks fight like a hive. Coordinated, efficient. We fight like humans. Messy, creative, and really damn stubborn. The operation began at dawn in New Zealand. Makeshift transmitters, cobbled together from radio equipment, modified cell towers, and repurposed satellite dishes, broadcast Nakamura's disruption signal at maximum strength. The effect on the cracks' occupation forces was immediate and devastating. Alien soldiers collapsed in the streets of Auckland, their neural systems overwhelmed. Others fired wildly, unable to control their weapons properly. Some managed to maintain enough function to retreat to their vessels, but coordination had broken down completely. An hour later, Australia activated its transmitters, then Indonesia, the Philippines, Japan. The disruption wave continued westward, with resistance forces striking in each region as the cracks forces weakened. In Osaka, Dr. Nakamura watched the operation unfold through fragmented communications. "It's working better than we hoped," he told his team of graduate students and engineers who'd helped perfect the frequency. "Their neural interfaces are completely destabilized." But the cracks were not defeated so easily. As the disruption wave reached mainland Asia, the aliens adapted. Their ships adjusted shields to block the worst of the frequencies, and ground forces switched to backup systems less reliant on neural connections. In Beijing, the counterattack stalled as cracks reinforcements deployed with modified armor. Resistance fighters found themselves outgunned once again, forced to retreat into the sprawling city, where they could use their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. "They're learning," Colonel Kim reported from Seoul, where her forces had successfully recaptured the city center but were now facing renewed alien resistance. "The frequency isn't working as well anymore." Dr. Nakamura had anticipated this. Phase 2, he instructed over the secure channel. Randomize the modulation patterns. Don't let them calibrate their defenses. Across Asia, resistance technicians implemented the changes, creating unpredictable variations in the disruption signals. It bought them time, but the advantage was shrinking. The wave continued across India, the Middle East, into Europe. In orbit, Supreme Commander Vorax observed the unfolding chaos with growing fury. "These humans," he hissed to his command staff, "they should have been broken by now. The reinforcement fleet will arrive in 6 standard rotations." Drex reminded him. "We need only hold until then. If there's anything left to hold," Vorax replied, watching as another landing base fell to human attackers. "Implement the Scorched Earth Protocol. If we cannot control these humans, we will decimate their numbers until the survivors have no choice but submission." The order went out to all cracks forces. Civilian targets were now authorized. The invasion had entered a new, more brutal phase. In Geneva, the Underground Command Center received reports of the change in cracks tactics with grim determination. Civilian casualties were mounting rapidly as the aliens targeted population centers with orbital strikes. "They're getting desperate," General Santos observed. "That means we're hurting them." "At what cost?" asked the representative from Brazil, whose capital had just been hit. "We're losing thousands every hour now." "We accelerate the timetable," Santos replied. "The final phase begins now, not when the wave reaches the Americas." We take the fight to them, to their command ships. This had always been the most audacious part of Operation Thunderclap, the part many thought impossible. Using captured Crax shuttles to deliver strike teams to the orbiting command vessels. Teams had been training for this mission since the invasion began, learning to operate alien technology through trial and deadly error. Now, ready or not, they had to move. 7 teams, 7 ships, 7 suicide missions, because nobody expected to return. In Cairo, Captain Layla Farouk led the first team, boarding a captured Crax shuttle with 5 resistance fighters and a payload of modified disruptor devices. Remember, she told her team as they secured the jury rate harnesses, "We just need to get close enough to plant the devices. The ship systems will do the rest." Similar scenes played out in the other target cities, with teams launching toward the Crax vessels hovering above. The alien defenses were formidable, but distracted by the ground war raging below. Some shuttles were detected and destroyed before reaching their targets. Others made it through. Aboard the flagship over New York, Vorax received alarming reports of human infiltration on 3 command vessels. "Impossible," he snarled. "How are they even operating our technology?" The answer came moments later as ship systems began failing across the fleet. The humans had somehow interfaced their disruptor technology directly into the vessel's neural networks, creating cascading failures that spread from system to system. In London, Colonel Blackwood's team successfully planted their devices before being cornered by Crax security forces. "For Earth," he said simply, before detonating the charges they'd brought as a last resort. The explosion breached the ship's power core, sending it plummeting toward the Thames in a controlled crash that minimized civilian casualties below. 4 of the 7 Crax command ships were disabled or destroyed in the coordinated attack. The remaining 3, including Vorax's flagship, initiated emergency protocols, pulling back to higher orbits where they could regroup. On the ground, Crax forces suddenly found themselves without central command, their communications fragmented. Some units fought on with increased ferocity. Others, particularly those most affected by the neural disruption, fell into disarray. Dr. Nakamura, monitoring the operation from Osaka, allowed himself a moment of hope. "They're vulnerable," he told his team. "For the first time since they arrived, they're vulnerable." In the Appalachians, General Santos received the news with cautious optimism. "Push the advantage," she ordered all resistance cells. "Don't give them time to recover." The next 12 hours saw intense fighting across the globe, with human forces reclaiming territory in every theater. The remaining Crax ships attempted orbital strikes, but without the full network, their accuracy was compromised. In his flagship, Vorax faced the unthinkable: defeat at the hands of a species his empire had dismissed as primitive and predictable. "Prepare the final solution," he ordered Drex. "If we cannot have this world, neither will they." The final solution was a planet-killer weapon, capable of rendering Earth uninhabitable. It would be a humiliating retreat for the Crax, but Vorax would not return home having lost to inferior beings. But as the weapon powered up, something unexpected happened. Alarms blared throughout the flagship, and system after system began shutting down. "What is happening?" Vorax demanded. Drex checked the diagnostics in disbelief. "Commander, the humans. They're in our systems. Somehow they've introduced a virus into the neural network." Indeed, Dr. Nakamura and a global team of programmers had made one final breakthrough. Using captured Crax neural interfaces, they had created a digital virus that mimicked the frequency disruption, but could propagate through the aliens' networked systems. "We studied how their technology interfaces with their biology," Nakamura explained to resistance leaders. "It's elegant but fundamentally flawed. They never conceived of anyone being able to reverse engineer it, so they built no safeguards." Aboard the flagship, Vorax watched helplessly as his command slipped away. Life support systems were failing. Weapons were offline. The only systems still functioning were basic navigation and communication. With no alternatives, he opened a channel to Earth. "Humans," he began, his translated voice lacking its former confidence. "You have fought unexpectedly well. We offer terms for our withdrawal." In Geneva, the assembled resistance leadership received the transmission with stunned silence, followed by cautious celebration. They had done what seemed impossible, forced the cracks to the negotiating table. General Santos stepped forward to respond. "No terms, Commander Vorax. You leave our system immediately, and you take with you this message for your empire. Earth is not, and will never be, yours to take." For several long moments, there was no response. Then the remaining crack ships began moving away from Earth, accelerating toward the edge of the solar system. Victory had come at a terrible cost. Major cities lay in ruins. Millions had died in the 3-week war. The environmental damage from the alien weapons would take decades to heal. But humanity had survived. More than that, humanity had won. In the aftermath, as recovery efforts began worldwide, Dr. Nakamura published his findings on cracks technology, making them available to all nations. "They'll be back," he warned during a global broadcast. "If not the cracks, then others. We need to be ready." The knowledge gained from the invasion accelerated human technological development dramatically. The reverse-engineered crack systems provided insights into faster-than-light travel, advanced materials, and energy production that would have taken centuries to develop independently. 6 months after the crack's retreat, the United Earth Defense Force was formed, combining the resources and knowledge of all nations. Their first project, a planetary defense system using the very neural disruption technology that had saved humanity. 1 year after the invasion, humanity launched its first true interstellar probe, carrying the simple message to the stars. "We are humanity. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves." In his Tokyo apartment, now converted into a research lab for the new Earth Defense Science Division, Dr. Nakamura watched the probe launch with a mixture of pride and concern. "What do you think they'll make of us out there?" asked his assistant, a young engineer who had fought in the Shanghai resistance. Nakamura smiled slightly. "They'll find us unpredictable, I imagine. And in the vast darkness between stars, that might be humanity's greatest strength."